Hey there, friend. Before we dive into today's story, let me ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated? Treated like you're invisible, even when you're giving it your all? Well, today's story is about a woman who lived in the shadows of the rich and powerful, until one night, one unexpected opportunity changed everything. And the man who gave her that chance? A millionaire with a reputation for arrogance, control, and breaking hearts. But what happens when ambition meets authenticity? When a quiet cook challenges the king of the mansion? Get comfortable, grab your favorite drink, because this isn't just a story about food and fame. It's about fire, trust, betrayal, and a recipe that neither of them expected. Let's begin. The Lancaster mansion was a symbol of perfection. Marble floors, gold-rimmed chandeliers, and servants who moved like shadows. Among those shadows was Sophia. She wasn't a butler or a maid. She was the cook, the one who made the food that others praised without knowing her name. She had worked in that kitchen for 3 years, always in silence, always in the background. But she loved the work, the rhythm of knives against cutting boards, the scent of herbs, the dance of flame beneath a skillet. It was her world, even if no one else noticed her in it, especially not Henry Lancaster. Heir to the Lancaster fortune, Henry walked through the mansion like he owned the air itself. Tall, tailored, and infuriatingly composed, he was everything Sophia resented, privilege without appreciation. She had seen him a dozen times in passing, usually giving orders or receiving praise. He never once glanced her way, until that morning. Sophia was chopping rosemary when she heard raised voices echo from the main hall. She paused, curiosity prickling at her. It wasn't often the mansion's perfect order was disrupted. She moved quietly toward the doorway and peeked into the hall. Henry was arguing with the event coordinator, his voice tight with frustration. "The head chef quit? Today? We have a party for 300 people!" The coordinator stammered, trying to explain, but Henry wasn't listening. His blue eyes scanned the room and landed on Sophia. For a moment their gazes locked. Then he strode toward her. "You're the cook, right?" he asked, stopping just short of her. Sophia stood straighter. "Yes, Mr. Lancaster." "I need you tonight," he said without preamble. "Oversee dinner. We have no chef and no time to find one." Sophia blinked. "Me? But I'm just the—" "You're the only one who knows the kitchen," he cut in. "Can you handle it? Or should I cancel the party?" The challenge in his tone ignited something in her. This wasn't just an opportunity. It was a test, a door cracking open after years of being closed. She drew in a breath and nodded. "All right, I'll do it." Henry's expression didn't change. He simply turned and walked away. Sophia stood there for a moment, the weight of what she'd agreed to settling in. Tonight, she wouldn't be invisible. For better or worse, the spotlight was on her now, and somewhere deep inside, she was ready for it. The moment Henry disappeared down the corridor, reality hit Sophia like a cold wave. A luxury party for 300 guests. Tonight, no head chef, and she had just agreed to run the show. For a moment, panic clutched her chest. She looked around the kitchen, familiar, comforting, but now a battlefield. She wasn't used to leading. She was used to following, to staying quiet, to keeping her head down. Not anymore. She snapped into action. "I need all hands on deck," she said to the staff around her. "We're going to run this like clockwork." The sous chefs and prep cooks, startled but responsive, rallied around her. Sophia moved with focus, checking the inventory, organizing the stations, dividing tasks, and reworking the entire menu to suit what they had. There was no room for hesitation. Every move had to be fast, sharp, and decisive. Hours passed in a blur of sizzling pans, chopping knives, and shouting over boiling pots. For once, she wasn't a background figure. She was the one calling the shots. As the sun dipped low behind the mansion's tall windows, the staff buzzed like a machine. Sophia's white apron was stained with flour and sauce, but her eyes were bright with adrenaline. The kitchen smelled like victory: roasted duck, herbed lamb, fresh-baked bread. Then she heard the slow clap of leather shoes. Henry Lancaster stood in the doorway, no longer in his casual attire but dressed in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. He leaned casually against the frame, watching her with a hint of surprise. "Looks like you know what you're doing." Sophia didn't look up from the tray she was garnishing. "Cooking is the only thing I've ever known how to do." Henry gave a short laugh, more amused than mocking. "Well, lucky me." She didn't respond, focused on the presentation, but she felt his gaze linger longer than necessary, as if trying to solve a puzzle he never realized was there. "The guests are arriving," he said after a pause. "I want you to be out there." Sophia looked up sharply. "Out there?" Henry nodded. "You created the food. You should make sure everything's perfect. Besides," he gave a sly, almost boyish smile, "it might be nice to have someone real among all those fake smiles." Sophia hesitated. She had never stepped into the dining hall during an event. That was for the elite, for servers in black vests and guests in diamonds. But something about Henry's tone, it wasn't a command. It was almost an invitation. She nodded slowly. "Give me 5 minutes." As he walked away, Sophia reached for the simple black dress she always kept in her locker, just in case. She had never worn it, never needed to, until now. She didn't know what awaited her in that grand hall, but she knew one thing. She was no longer just the cook behind the door. The grand hall shimmered like something out of a dream. Gold chandeliers, crystal glasses, and people dressed in couture. As Sophia stepped through the side entrance, the chatter dimmed for just a beat. Eyes turned toward her. She could feel it. The curiosity, the judgment. She wasn't one of them. She wasn't supposed to be seen. Wearing her modest black dress and tied-back hair, she felt like an imposter on a stage meant for royalty. But she walked with her head high. This was her food on their plates. Her hands had built this night. Henry was waiting near the center of the room, looking every bit the perfect host. When he saw her, he smiled. Not his usual smug grin, but something gentler, proud almost. "There you are," he said, offering her a glass of water instead of champagne. "You look appropriate." Sophia arched a brow. "Is that your idea of a compliment?" He smirked. "It's the best I can do around all these sharks." Before she could respond, a tall, stunning woman approached. Her sleek dress clung like it had been poured on, and her expression was razor-sharp. "Henry," she cooed, looping her arm through his. "Who's this?" Sophia recognized her instantly. Victoria Ashcroft, the socialite heiress, and Henry's on-again, off-again scandal magnate. "This is Sophia," Henry replied easily. "She's the chef behind tonight's menu." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "A chef?" Her gaze ran down Sophia like she was something under a microscope. "Well, I hope she knows her place." Sophia met her gaze calmly. "My place is wherever my work takes me." Henry stifled a laugh. Victoria did not. She gave a tight nod, excused herself with icy grace, and disappeared into the crowd. "You enjoyed that," Sophia said, hiding her amusement behind a sip of water. Henry leaned closer. "A little." As the evening continued, Sophia remained by Henry's side, at first awkwardly, but soon with quiet confidence. Guests began approaching her, curious about the flavors on their plates. An investor complimented her creativity and asked about her inspiration. She talked about local ingredients, storytelling through food, and cooking with heart. She wasn't trying to impress, she was simply honest. And that honesty lit up the room. Henry watched all of it from the sidelines, his expression unreadable. When the final course had been served, he found her in the hallway outside the kitchen. "You surprised everyone tonight," he said, "including me." Sophia shrugged, suddenly unsure of what to say. "I just did my job." "No," Henry said, stepping closer. "You did more than that. You owned the room. You made this night happen. And I want more of that." She blinked. "More? I have a project, something big. I want you on it." Sophia's breath caught. This wasn't just a compliment. This was an invitation, a chance, maybe even a beginning. The next morning, the mansion kitchen felt strangely quiet. Sophia stood alone, wiping down counters that didn't need cleaning. Her thoughts, however, were anything but tidy. Henry's words from the night before echoed in her mind. "I have a project, something big. I want you on it." She had barely slept, replaying the entire evening. Her unexpected moment in the spotlight, Victoria's glare, the guests' compliments, and the way Henry had looked at her as if he were seeing her for the first time. But what did he really see? A talented chef? A convenient solution? Or just another pawn in his polished world? She was still deep in thought when a familiar voice broke the silence. "Good morning, Sophia." She turned. Henry Lancaster stood at the doorway, dressed down in jeans and a buttoned shirt, but still with that effortless arrogance that made him seem born for power. "I hope you've thought about my proposal," he said, stepping into the kitchen. Sophia crossed her arms. "I have, and I'm still thinking." His brow lifted slightly. "I expected you to be more decisive. You don't seem like someone who hesitates." "I don't hesitate when it comes to cooking," she said calmly, "but I do when it comes to working with people who barely respect me." That landed harder than she expected. Henry's smile faltered. "I see," he said, folding his arms. "I admit I might have underestimated you." "Might?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. He chuckled, the tension between them easing just a little. "Okay, I did. But what I said last night still stands. You're talented, and I want you on this." Sophia hesitated. Beneath the charm and arrogance, there was something else, something she couldn't quite name. He wasn't used to asking, he was used to commanding. This felt different. "What kind of project?" she asked finally. Henry's eyes lit up. "A restaurant, downtown, but not just another luxury spot. I want it to be something bold, unique, a place that blends elegance with authenticity." She tilted her head. "And you think I can deliver that?" "I know you can," he said, voice steady. "Because you're not trying to impress anyone. You're just real. That's exactly what this city needs." Sophia looked down at the gleaming countertops she had scrubbed 100 times. This kitchen had been her world. Safe, familiar, hidden. But maybe it was time to step out. "I'll give you my answer by the end of the day," she said at last. Henry gave a slow, satisfied nod. "I'll be waiting." As he turned and left, Sophia exhaled deeply. The decision ahead wasn't simple. It wasn't just about opening a restaurant. It was about stepping into the unknown, with a man who could either elevate her or destroy everything she'd built. But part of her, deep down, was already leaning toward yes. The building was nothing like Sophia had imagined. A wide, modern space with towering glass walls and a sweeping view of the city skyline. It looked like the kind of place meant for fashion shows or tech moguls, not a restaurant. But this was where Henry wanted to build his vision. "Our canvas," he said, gesturing with both arms like a magician revealing a trick. Sophia walked slowly through the space, her shoes echoing on the concrete floor. It felt too clean, too cold. She couldn't yet see the warmth of food, the clatter of pans, or the quiet focus of a team working in harmony. It felt too perfect. "I want it to feel sophisticated," Henry explained, walking beside her, "but not sterile, exclusive, but not intimidating." Sophia arched a brow. "You're describing opposites." "Exactly," he said with a grin. "We're creating something no one's done before." She gave a short laugh. "You mean we're creating a contradiction, or a revolution?" he said, undeterred. It wasn't long before the design team and architects joined them. Henry dove into details, lighting, flow, seating arrangements. He had strong opinions and didn't hesitate to voice them. Sophia mostly stayed quiet, observing, processing, until they reached the kitchen plans. "This area here is marked for imported wine storage," one architect explained, pointing to a side space near the main hall. Sophia frowned. That should be cold storage for fresh ingredients. It's too close to the kitchen not to use efficiently. Henry glanced over. The clientele we're targeting values wine. And the team that cooks for them values accessibility, Sophia countered. If we want flawless service, the design has to serve the chefs too. For a moment, Henry said nothing. The room tensed. Then he sighed and nodded. Fine. We'll do it your way. Sophia blinked. She hadn't expected that. Later, reviewing the sample menu together, another disagreement flared. Henry wanted dramatic presentation, foam, smoke, edible gold. Sophia cared more about flavor and sourcing. People eat with their eyes first, Henry insisted. They fall in love with food because of what they feel, she shot back, not how shiny it looks. He leaned back in his chair, watching her with a mix of frustration and fascination. You're relentless. And you're stubborn, she replied without missing a beat. There was a moment of silence. Then, unexpectedly, Henry smiled. That's why we might actually make this work. Sophia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They were clashing, yes, but also sharpening each other. This wasn't going to be easy. But maybe that was the point. Days passed, then weeks. The restaurant slowly came to life. Walls were painted, tiles laid, kitchen equipment installed. It was no longer just an idea. It was becoming real, and so was something else. The way Henry looked at Sophia was different now, less like a business partner, more like a mystery he couldn't stop trying to solve. He started asking about her background, her favorite dishes, even her childhood. Not in a calculated way, in a curious, almost disarming one. Sophia kept her guard up mostly, until one morning. They were reviewing the menu in a quiet corner of the restaurant. The usual debate over ingredients had simmered into something more relaxed. He asked about her obsession with local produce. It tells a story, she explained. Every ingredient comes from somewhere. Someone grew it. Someone picked it. That matters. Henry leaned back in his chair, watching her. You talk about food like it's alive, she smiled faintly. Because it is. It carries memory, emotion, history. He nodded, thoughtful. No one's ever explained it to me like that. Sophia blinked. You've worked with dozens of chefs. Exactly. And none of them were like you. She didn't know what to say to that. Later that evening, while she was testing recipes alone in the kitchen, a voice startled her. You've become quite the topic of conversation. Sophia turned to find a well-dressed woman standing in the doorway. Late 30s, poised, eyes sharp. I'm Eleanor Carter, the woman said. We haven't met, but I know Henry quite well. The air shifted. Sophia wiped her hands and nodded. Can I help you? Eleanor stepped closer. I just thought you should know. Henry has a pattern. He finds people with talent, uses their brilliance to build something impressive, and when it no longer serves him, he walks away. Sophia's spine stiffened. I don't know what happened between you two, but he said we were partners, Eleanor cut in, voice suddenly tight. And the moment my usefulness ran out, I was gone. Sophia stared at her, the confidence she'd felt just hours ago now tangled with doubt. Eleanor's tone softened, almost pitying. You seem like a good person. Just be careful. With that, she turned and walked away, heels echoing like warnings on tile. Sophia stood frozen, the quiet of the kitchen suddenly too loud. Was this woman telling the truth? Or planting seeds? She didn't want to believe Henry could be that manipulative. He had listened to her, fought for her ideas. He'd respected her, hadn't he? But the look in Eleanor's eyes hadn't been bitter. It had been knowing. Later that night, as she stared at her ceiling, sleep nowhere in sight, one question echoed louder than the rest. What do I really know about Henry Lancaster? The following morning, the restaurant felt colder. Sophia moved through the space with practiced ease, checking deliveries, inspecting prep stations, coordinating with the team. But inside, she was unraveling. Eleanor's words haunted her every move. She had told herself not to let it get to her. But doubt, once planted, grew fast, and Henry didn't make it easier. He arrived late, unusually quiet. His usual charm was replaced with a distant tension, like he too was carrying something heavy. When their eyes met across the dining hall, Sophia hesitated, then looked away. She wasn't ready. Not yet. But that changed by afternoon. She found him alone in the meeting room, scrolling through spreadsheets. She stepped inside, shutting the door behind her. "I haven't accepted your offer," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Not really. Not until I understand who I'm working with." Henry looked up, surprised. "You've been here every day." "That's not the same as trusting you." He leaned back, arms crossed. "Okay, say what you came to say." Sophia didn't waver. "A woman named Eleanor Carter came to see me." The name landed like a punch. Henry's expression hardened, his jaw clenched. "Of course she did. She said you used her, promised her a partnership, then walked away the moment she wasn't useful anymore." He stood slowly. "And you believed her?" "I don't know what to believe," Sophia admitted. "That's why I'm asking you." For a moment, Henry said nothing. The silence stretched, thick with something unspoken. Then, finally, he exhaled and sank back into his chair. "Eleanor and I worked together years ago. It started out well. Big ideas, mutual ambition, but we didn't agree on execution. When it became clear it wouldn't work, I stepped away." Sophia narrowed her eyes. "Just like that?" "She wanted something I couldn't give," he said simply. "I never promised her forever, just like I haven't promised it to you." The words stung more than she expected. "I'm not asking for forever," she replied, voice low. "I'm asking if this is real." Henry's expression softened just slightly. "What we're building here, it's the most real thing I've done in years." His tone wasn't smooth or charming. It was raw, honest. Sophia watched him carefully, searching for cracks in the surface, for lies, for deflection. But all she saw was a man trying, awkwardly, to be better than his past. She let out a long breath. "I'm still in, but if you ever treat me like I'm disposable, I will walk, and you will regret it." Henry met her gaze. "Fair enough." As she left the room, the weight on her chest felt a little lighter. She still didn't have all the answers, but for now, she had made her choice, and she was ready to see where it led. The restaurant's opening was just days away. The buzz had already started. Influencers posting teasers, food blogs speculating about Henry Lancaster's newest project, and murmurs in elite circles about the mysterious female chef behind it all. Sophia tried to keep her focus on the food, the flow, the team. But a storm was brewing. It came crashing down in the form of a tablet. "Sophia!" Sarah, the restaurant's assistant manager, called in a low, panicked voice. "You need to see this." Sophia wiped her hands and walked into the front lounge, where Sarah handed her the screen. A news article was plastered across it. Behind the fork, Henry Lancaster's trail of broken partnerships. Her name was in the subheading. Sophia froze. The article detailed several of Henry's past ventures, including his work with Eleanor. It painted him as cold, ambitious, and ruthless, a man who used others as stepping stones. And Sophia? The article speculated she was his next disposable muse. Her stomach turned. Henry walked in moments later, sensing the tension instantly. "I saw it too," he said, voice tight. "It's everywhere." He tossed his coat on a chair and rubbed his temples. Sophia looked up at him, heart pounding. "This could ruin everything." "I know," he said, meeting her eyes. "And I'm sorry." But she wasn't looking for an apology. She was looking for a plan. "What do we do?" she asked. Henry straightened. "We keep going. We let our work speak louder than rumors." He sounded sure, but Sophia could see the crack in his armor. The pressure was mounting, and even he couldn't mask it completely. Later that day, a customer approached during a private pre-opening tasting event. "Mr. Lancaster," the man said coolly, "what's your response to the article?" Henry smiled politely. "My response is the same as the meal you're eating. We let our results speak for us." It was a solid line, but Sophia saw his hand tighten slightly at his side. That night, she found him sitting alone in the garden behind the restaurant. The fairy lights glowed softly, and the city hummed beyond the glass fence. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Henry didn't answer right away. Then, finally, he looked at her. "I'm tired of fighting ghosts," he admitted. "No matter what I do, people think they already know me." Sophia sat beside him. "Then show them who you really are." He looked at her, vulnerability flashing in his usually guarded eyes. "Do you believe I can?" She didn't answer immediately, but then, slowly, she nodded. "I believe in what we've built, and I'll fight for it, if you do too." Henry exhaled, almost in relief. They didn't touch. They didn't speak. But in that quiet moment beneath the garden lights, something unshakable formed between them. Not just trust, but resolve. 2 days before opening night, the phone rang in Sophia's office. Sarah knocked gently before entering. "You're going to want to take this," she said, eyes wide. "It's the Gourmet Observer. They're sending a senior critic to preview the restaurant before the official launch." Sophia blinked. That wasn't just good, it was make or break. One glowing review from them could bury the rumors. One bad sentence, and all their efforts would unravel. Henry appeared at the doorway moments later, already aware. "This is our shot," he said, voice calm but firm. "We show them what this place is made of." Sophia nodded. "Then let's make it unforgettable." The day of the critic's visit, the kitchen hummed like a well-rehearsed orchestra. Sophia tasted every sauce, checked every garnish, double-checked the lighting, the pacing, the service flow. Henry, surprisingly, stayed out of the way, hovering, observing, but not interfering. When the critic arrived, a middle-aged woman with discerning eyes and an air of quiet power, the room seemed to hold its breath. She ate in near silence, pausing occasionally to scribble notes. No smiles, no compliments, just observation. After dessert, she requested to meet the head chef. Sophia's heart nearly stopped. Henry came into the kitchen, his tie loosened but his smile sharp. "She wants to meet you," he said. "I'm not sure I'm ready," Sophia whispered. "You are," he replied, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. "You were always ready." His touch lingered longer than necessary, and when Sophia finally stepped into the dining area, the critic greeted her with a nod of acknowledgement, not warmth, but not disapproval either. "What inspired the menu?" the critic asked. Sophia straightened her spine. "Local ingredients, stories. I believe food should speak for where it comes from and who makes it." The critic studied her, then made one note on her pad. "Interesting." And then she left. Sophia exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours. That night, while the rest of the team cleaned up, Sophia sat at one of the tables, exhausted but relieved. Henry joined her, carrying 2 glasses of wine. "You were brilliant," he said, sliding one glass toward her. She smiled weakly. She barely said anything. "That's how you know she liked it." They clinked glasses, and for a moment there was silence between them. Not awkward, just expectant. Then Henry spoke, voice quieter than usual. "I meant what I said earlier," he began. "You were always ready. I just hadn't realized I wasn't." Sophia looked up. "I didn't think this would mean as much to me as it does," he continued. "And not just the restaurant. You." Her breath caught. "I think I feel something more," he said softly. "And I had to tell you, even if it complicates everything." Sophia's heart beat faster. "Henry, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." The critic's review hadn't come in yet, but something else had begun, and it was much harder to control than food or reputation. The critic's review landed the next morning. 5 stars. Glowing praise. A bold, honest culinary experience that blends luxury with soul. The reservations poured in within hours. Staff cheered. Sophia cried, just a little in private. And Henry? For once, he didn't throw a party or call the press. He simply looked at Sophia, smiled, and said, "You did it." That night, the restaurant sparkled with energy, but Henry seemed quieter than usual. He lingered at the edge of the kitchen, watching her work. Then, as she was checking inventory, he approached with a strange look in his eyes. "We need a break," he said suddenly. Sophia blinked. "A break?" "Not from each other," he clarified with a small smirk. "From this. Just one day. You, me, and no kitchen." She narrowed her eyes. "Where are we going?" "It's a surprise." The next morning, Sophia found herself in the passenger seat of Henry's car, watching the city melt into countryside. They arrived at a quiet lakeside cabin nestled among tall pines. The air was crisp, the water glassy and untouched. It was the kind of place that didn't need noise. It spoke in stillness. "This is perfect," Sophia whispered. Henry smiled, watching her take it in. "Thought you could use something real. No pressure, no critics, just us." They spent the afternoon walking trails, skipping stones across the lake and talking about anything but the restaurant. Sophia found herself laughing more than she had in months. And Henry, he was softer out here. Less Lancaster, more Henry. As the sun began to set, he grilled fish and vegetables over an open flame. They ate on the porch, warm light spilling from the cabin, stars beginning to prick the sky. "I never imagined you like this," Sophia said quietly. "Like what?" "Peaceful," he chuckled. "You bring it out of me." Later, they walked down to the water's edge where Henry had built a small bonfire. The flames flickered between them, lighting his face in amber hues. Sophia pulled her jacket tighter. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of things unsaid. Finally, Henry spoke. "When we started this, I thought it would be just another project, something to control, to own. But you—" He paused, searching for the words. "You changed the recipe." Sophia's heart pounded. "And what are we now?" Henry stepped closer. "More than partners, more than friends. At least, I hope so." She looked at him unsure, hopeful, terrified. And then he kissed her. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow, like everything that had been building between them finally found a home. When they pulled apart, neither said a word. They didn't need to. The fire crackled. The stars blinked. And somewhere in the middle of the quiet woods, something fragile and real had taken root. Months passed. The restaurant had become one of the most talked about spots in the city. Critics praised its originality. Guests waited weeks for reservations. Sophia's name was now mentioned in the same breath as renowned chefs, and Henry, once labeled cold and calculating, had quietly transformed into the kind of leader people respected, even admired. Together, they had built something extraordinary. But with success came scrutiny. Sophia was finalizing plans for a private event one afternoon when Sarah interrupted her. "There's someone here to see you," she said cautiously. "She says it's important." Sophia walked to the reception area and froze. Eleanor Carter, again. The woman looked poised, but there was a flicker of exhaustion behind her eyes. "I came to apologize," she said without preamble. "I let my past with Henry cloud my judgment. I should never have dragged you into it." Sophia remained silent for a moment, then she nodded. "I appreciate you saying that. I just needed to see for myself," Eleanor added. "And it's clear now, you're not someone he's using." After Eleanor left, Sophia stood alone for a long moment, letting the closure settle. That evening, she found Henry on the restaurant's rooftop garden, one of his more recent design additions. He was watching the city lights with a glass of wine in hand. "She came to see me," Sophia said. Henry turned, surprised. "Eleanor?" She apologized. His eyebrows lifted. That's unexpected. Sophia moved to stand beside him. So is what we've become. He smiled, but there was a question in his eyes. Is that a good thing? She didn't answer with words. Instead, she took his hand. They stood there in silence, fingers intertwined, no longer guarded, no longer unsure. Later that night, after the last guests had gone and the lights dimmed to a soft glow, Henry pulled out a table for two in the center of the dining room. No staff, no guests, just us, he said, already setting plates. You cooked? Sophia asked, amused. Don't be so surprised. I've learned a thing or two. He served a simple meal. Nothing flashy, Jew. After the meal, Henry reached across the table. I used to think success was about numbers, headlines, owning the room, he said quietly. But then you walked in with flour on your cheek and changed everything. Sophia felt a warmth rise in her chest. I used to think I'd always be invisible. He smiled. Not to me. And in that moment, surrounded by empty wine glasses and candlelight, the restaurant didn't feel like a business. It felt like home, their home, built not just with ambition, but with trust, conflict, resilience, and something that had grown quietly between them, like a perfect dish made from the simplest ingredients. Love.